Perry,
Here.
Mr. Sneak,
Present. Present.
Mr. Urban.
Here.
Mr. Lovett.
Here.
Ms. Radel.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. For recognitions and ceremonial proclamations, I have an autism awareness proclamation. Whereas autism is a pervasive developmental disorder affecting the social learning and behavioral skills of those affected by it, and whereas healthcare professionals are becoming more and more proficient in diagnosing autism, resulting in rates as high as 1 in 44 children being affected, and whereas a child diagnosed with autism every 20 minutes, and whereas there is no cure for autism, though it is well documented that individuals with autism receive treatment early in their lives, it is often possible for those individuals to lead significantly improved lives. And whereas Autism Awareness, NEPA, together with area support groups, parents and family members, local medical and therapy providers, community partners, government bodies, including Luzerne County and its mental health and developmental services program, provides support, education, advocacy, healthcare, and behavioral therapy to the increasing number of individuals with autism throughout the region. And no, therefore, we, the Luzerne County Council, do hereby urge residents of Luzerne County and all of northeastern Pennsylvania to participate in the autism awareness activities in order to become better educated on the subject of autism, and do hereby recognize the month of April in the year 2022 as Autism Awareness Month in Luzerne County. The proclamation was presented on April 1st at a River Grill event for Autism Awareness NEPA. Thank you. Did you want to announce the executive session, Attorney Steve?
Yes, council had an executive session before this meeting where we discussed matters relating to personnel and union contracts.
Thank you, Attorney Skeen. Any deletions from the voting session agenda? Hearing none, do we have a motion to adopt the voting session agenda?
So moved.
Second below.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Hearing none, the agenda is adopted. We're now having public comment on agenda items for the voting session only. I have Mr. Rabo.
Good evening, council. In regards to agenda item number 2, using the ARPA money to allocate for Hazleton City Land Bank, $500,000. I strongly urge the council to vote no on this, and there are numerous reasons why. First of which, last year I brought to previous council that the purchase of 9799 North Church Street was an unauthorized purchase under statute and by its own Hazleton City Land Bank ordinance. There was no temporary land bank board authorized under the ordinance that formed the city land bank, nor is it allowed under state statute under Title 68 for land banks. So therefore, that purchase was not legal. Also, the fact that under a right to know request that I filed, the land bank board, the temporary land bank board, never legally advertised the meeting. Therefore, that purchase wasn't valid. Also, under state statute, under Title 66 for land banks, the land bank, the temporary land bank board had 3 board members. By statute, you are required to at least have 5 members. So therefore, that purchase was not legal. Yet, the tax claim office of this county transferred that property to the city land bank without doing their due diligence that I urged not once, not twice, 3 times. So therefore, if you're going to give $500,000 to an entity that was reckless and inconsiderate of purchasing a property that didn't do its due diligence, then you're doing a grave disservice to the county taxpayers who voted for you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Rabo. Mr. Dombrowski?
Mr. Robertson, Randy is 67, which I don't think that's been mentioned in any of these other meetings, and he'll be 68 in November. from what I understand, his new position, if he's hired tonight, will be appointed tonight, will be likely complete his career. Attorney Pedri resigned now 9 months and a couple days ago, last July 6th it was. We had 2 people appointed, and now Attorney Crocomo has resigned. And I'm asking for, and probably most other people here are asking for the good of Luzerne County's 324,000 residents. We're hoping tonight we get the 7th vote needed to hire Mr. Robertson. I believe that, I don't know if Mr. Pedri had a contract or if he was salary only. I don't know enough about it, but if you can offer contracts, I think he would agree to probably do a 3-year contract, Mr. Robertson. And I think his military and his municipal experience certainly qualifying to be at least good and possibly very good as a county manager. And the fact he's from out of the area will help him to concentrate solely on county issues. And I think that's very important too. That's all for.
Thank you, Mr. Dombrowski. All the other slips I have are either for a non-agenda item or a work session agenda item. Mr. Griffin, hi.
Good evening, council and fellow citizens. Greg Griffin. I just had a question on the Hazleton Land Bank, and it pertains to $500,000 out of the ARP funds, which was 114 million from Washington, and that's being whittled down. But my question is there anyone here from the Hazleton Land Bank to tell us what they plan on using the money for? I guess not.
Mr. Griffin, I believe Gary Perna from the Hazleton Land Bank is on the call this evening. He was on the
Oh, okay.
he was on, I think he was on the meeting, the previous meeting as
Great.
well. And he did submit a proposal to
But
us for our last.
Is he going to speak tonight, sir?
I believe he may.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that would be fantastic because as we whittle down 114 million of the people's money, we can't have these 500. Now, the flood control people were here, and a gentleman, he spoke at the podium. He did a great job, but I think he got 12 million. So he had a very good incentive for speaking well. And I think the money is well used for the flood control. But with the Hazleton Land Bank, we want to know what they plan on doing with it. Is it just going into a black hole? Do they have specific properties they're going to use the 500,000? And I know we gave some to the Pittston Land Bank or the Pittston Authority, and I don't know if those people were here either. But in the future, I would ask council to, if they're going to be doling out to people's money, whoever they're doling the money out to, have them here. And so let them explain on why they're partaking in the taxpayers' funds, because it's very important. $114 million has now been whittled down to 90 million. I'm not sure, but we have to really be careful that the people's money is spent well and also monitored. The money that we're given to these groups, who's going to check up on them later and ask them what they did with it? I know with my litter committee, if I was here to do a proposal for $500,000, maybe I'm a little old fashioned. I would be here with a big proposal on what I plan to do with the $500,000 to clean up Luzerne County. But these people in the future, you plan on doling the taxpayers' money out to, at least have them show up and give a little proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Also, just briefly, Mr. Perna was at our last work session and he spoke regarding the Hazleton Land Bank, and Joe Chalk from NEPA Land Bank did present as well.
Okay, that's very good.
Well, what about the public to know what you're voting on? Like what Mr. Rabo just said, if he's accurate in his assessment, it's illegal. It's null and void. If I heard him right.
Mr. Gregarious, if you would like to speak at the podium, you're.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Andy Gagaris, Denison Township, just to reiterate what Greg and Mr. Rabo said. If in fact they attended the work session, can you share what was presented so that the voters are informed?
It's public. The work sessions are public. They were on the.
Or a summary possible?
It's in the packet.
It's in the
Okay.
packet, so it does show.
Okay.
It's posted online ahead of the meeting. Just when, yep,
Thank you.
sure thing, Mr. Greer. Okay, any other members of the public?
Dave Chomp, West Pittston, Chairwoman Rado and council members. I would like to ask council to try to reach a consensus this evening and vote for Mr. Randy Robertson as county manager. Mr. Robertson's resume as a municipal manager is impressive, and the fact that he has no local ties to Luzerne County politics can be viewed as a positive factor in his appointment. I have heard certain council members bemoan the fact that he doesn't have county level experience as a manager, but the plethora of municipal experience he has at other levels more than negates that minor objection. I've also heard Mr. Lombardo express concern about his level of commitments and fear that he wouldn't stick around too long. I was very impressed with Mr. Roberts' response to this concern in the media, and would also put forward that it is not uncommon for executives in different fields to switch jobs after several years. Personally, I see it all the time in the public school system. I also find it just a little hypocritical that Mr. Lombardo would raise this as an objection when he himself is already running for a different office after a mere 3 months as a county councilman. If he had made the voters aware when he was campaigning that he was only planning on sticking around until something better came along, maybe he wouldn't be sitting in that seat right now. So I find that objection not valid. Make no mistake, many of you, I believe, are sitting in this seat right now because you were elected with the momentum of the America First movement at your back. Part of that mandate was to try to drain the local political swamp, appoint people with conservative values, backgrounds, positions, and not regurgitate the same old tired connected names and holdovers from previous democratic regimes. That is precisely why there was such an outrage when some of you backed the current manager, because it was seen as simply maintaining the status quo. And that is exactly what you were elected to get rid of. Thank you.
Any other members of the public? Mr. Newman, go ahead. I apologize. I think yours said non-agenda.
Well, can I speak on this? Okay.
Yeah, that's why I just think.
I wasn't going to, but I heard the word, and I'm talking about Mr. Robertson. And anybody who's afraid of his commitment, keep this in mind. He committed to the United States Army for 20 years. Now, how much more commitment can a man make than that? And you talk about how long is he going to be in the job? Well, the framers of our charter didn't put a term on it, and they didn't put a term limit on it. So unless you want to have an elected county manager with a term of 2, 4, 5, 8 years, whatever it might be, then change the charter. And let's not talk about commitment, because this man has already made a commitment to this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Mr. Gutierrez.
Yeah, just to follow up on that about commitment, I've been in several different administrations in different positions and had to leave jobs because I was forced out of a job, because I was told, if you don't go, we're gonna remove you anyway. So more importantly, the commitment of the job, but he needs the support and the resources behind him to make and ensure his success.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gutierrez. I apologize. You already had your one chance at the podium, so we can't give 2 chances to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? Okay, hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 14th, 2022 special meeting?
Ron Knapp from Nanticoke.
Go ahead, Mr. Knapp.
Thank you, Chairwoman Radel and Vice Chair Lombardo. I just wanted to thank Ramilda Crocomo, acting manager now, for withdrawing her application for the seat. That did a valuable asset or move so that Luzerne County can move forward. I don't think we'd be in this position right now for Mr. Johnson, if Ramila Crocomo didn't make that move. And I thank her for her service and the time that she's been there. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Okay, we already had a motion and a second for the minutes of the March 14th meeting. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 22nd, 2022 voting session?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions? Opposed? Motion passes. Motion to approve the minutes of the March 29th, 2022 special meeting.
So moved.
Second, Lombardo.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Agenda item number 1, motion to adopt resolution regarding a financing by the Northeastern Pennsylvania Hospital and Education Authority for Wyoming Seminary of the Susquehanna Annual Conference of the United Methodist Church in 44 Borough and Kingston Borough, Pennsylvania.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Ms. Lawrence?
Mr. Venus?
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch?
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo?
Yes.
Ms. McDermott? Yes. Mr. McGinley?
yes,
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Schneek?
Yes.
Mr. Thornton?
Yes.
Mr. Urban?
yes,
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Ms. Radel?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Motion to adopt resolution authorizing the use of American Rescue Plan Act funds by the Hazleton City Land Bank.
Presented, Schneek.
Second, Lombardo.
Roll call, Ms.
On the
Lawrence?
question.
Sure.
Sorry. Is Mr. Perna on the call? Would he be able to possibly answer one or two of these questions for us, just that were addressed by members of the public?
What was the property in question again?
9799 Church Street,
If you could answer that. South Church Street.
South Church Street. Is he on the call?
Yes, Mr. Lombardo, I'm here.
Mr. Perna, can you just address some of the concerns the public had about this?
Mr. Lombardo, members of council, I was not part of the initial committee startup board of it. I was appointed after, but everything up to this point when we, the new board have taken over, we were assured was done legal by our legal counsel. So the three properties that we do have in the land bank are owned by the city, and everything that we have was done legally when it was turned over to the new board.
Thank you. Mr. Perna, there was a question raised tonight by a member of the public regarding the minimum amount of board members required on the Land Bank Authority, that number being 5. Was there, or is there 3 members on your board?
There were 3 members of the initial board. Today, the full board is made up of 7 board members.
And you have a solicitor for your board,
That is correct.
and your solicitor has passed on the legality of the formation of your authority?
He has, sir.
Okay, thank you.
What
date did you start?
Sorry. Kevin, did you just want to finish and then Mr. Urban could go? He had his hand raised. Go ahead, Mr. LaScavitch. Sorry.
I'm just curious, what date did you start on the board?
What date was I appointed?
Yes.
Hold on.
So approximately.
So the board, 2 members were appointed by City Council on November 10th, 2021. I, along with the other appointment through executive order from Mayor Cassatt, were appointed on November. 1 second, I'm sorry. We were appointed on November 11th, 2021.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perna. Mr. Urban.
So I want to dissect this a little bit. You said, since the board has been consummated, everything has been legal, but prior to that, I have initial minutes in my possession right now showing that there were 3 members at the time. I looked up the act myself just a couple minutes ago, and Mr. Rabo, I think it is pretty correct in the assessment that there should have been 5 members before the initial board took action. So back on July 29th, I'm looking at basically some, looks like a meeting agenda. Number 1, I don't know if this was done with full sunshine. Number 2, 3 members is not 5. Number 3, I have your Department of State creation date of August 4th, 2021 from the Department of State. I have your IRS EIN as well, which was submitted on 8/5/2021. But the land bank, the initial meeting was done on July 29th, 2021. So I don't know how people would have been able to take official action, which then, creates a chain of events, which then encompasses also a Trump bid for this property, which, I have all the necessary documents here, along with the ordinance too, with the Hazleton City Land Bank. So, you may have done things legal after the fact, but prior to the 4th of August, I take that in a little bit of a question and some uncertainty on how we, as a county, also transferred that deed over to Hazleton City without a properly consummated board initially. I'd like, maybe our office law to take a look at that too, because these are the minutes right here, or the agenda. I just gave it to you. Yeah, you can have another copy, and I have other copies for council that you guys can pass around. But, I looked at some of the right to know requests, and I don't know if your meeting in July was properly advertised. And it's a pretty serious allegation from a member of the public to basically state that, hey, you're not consummated correctly. You did an action, which then caused other actions to then occur. And I, like I said, your board wasn't created until 8/4/2021 legally by the Department of State. That was when the documentation was submitted. The EIN was not given to the land bank until 8/5/2021. These are the IRS documents right here. So I do take in question on any actions prior to that date. I don't think it was probably ethical or legal at the time, and I'd like our office of law to take a look at that. So I want to take and make a motion to table this money until we get some answers.
We have a motion to table. Do we have a second?
So is there a motion in the second to vote?
Motion to table plants, a motion to.
Okay, so there's a motion. And did you second that, Mr. LaScavitch?
Yes.
Okay, roll call, Ms. Lawrence.
Well, next question.
Once it's tabled,
Okay.
there's no discussion allowed. I apologize.
Okay,
Mr. LaScavitch,
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo.
No.
Ms. McDermott. Yes. Mr. McGinley.
Mr. McGinley, you're muted.
And yes, you're right. I've been muted. No.
Mr. Perry.
no,
Mr. Schneed.
No.
Mr. Thornton.
yes,
Mr. Urban.
Yes.
Mr. Wilovich.
Yes.
Mr. Venus.
Yes.
Ms. Radel.
No.
6 yes, 5 no.
It's tabled.
could I just make a follow-up comment?
Yeah.
Real briefly, we're all in favor of eliminating blight in the county. I want every major area in the county to have their own official authority, blight committee, authority, whatever. I'm just worried because this is ARP money. I heard many times from Attorney Crocomo how strictly this is going to be audited for the next 5 to 7 years. Every penny we give out. If it's ever deemed that we were irresponsible in giving any of that money away to any organization, we have to pay that back. And I would like maybe going forward with any ask by anybody, not just Hazleton Land Bank, that somehow we incorporate some indemnification language that could hold the county harmless should that ever come back as not qualifying
as a correct allocation of money. That's my statement. I hope we can look into that.
I have
Thank you.
a further comment, if that's okay.
Yeah,
I'm just a little bit confused as to, the county transferred this over to the Hazleton Land Bank last year in July or August of 2021. So that was authorized by the county. Is that correct?
I don't recall taking a vote on that.
Okay. So that was not authorized by the county. There was didn't go through real estate committee or anything like that? No?
I
John,
don't
that
mean to
was
interrupt
not,
you.
that was not directly authorized by the county. That went through the elite. As they are the back tax group for the county, they handle all the auctions. They have their legal people who review everything. Everything was done through their office. As somebody mentioned, county council did not vote on that per se. It was done
Thank you,
through the
Mr.
elite.
Council members, since this was tabled, we'll have no further discussion on it now. We'll let the Office of Law investigate and we'll get back to you. Number 3, motion to adopt resolution authorizing the county manager to execute a lease addendum between Luzerne County and Luzerne County Community College for premises currently leased in the Broad Street Business Exchange Building.
Motion,
Second.
Roll call. Mr. Sneak.
Mr. Lombardo,
Yes.
Ms. McDermott. Yes. Mr. McGinley,
yes.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Mr. Schneek,
Yes.
Mr. Thornton.
Yes.
Mr. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Lovett.
Yes.
Mr. Venus.
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch.
Yes.
Ms. Radel.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Motion passes. Number 4, motion to adopt resolution approving the sales of certain parcels of property held in repository by Elite Revenue, acting as the Luzerne County Tax Claim Bureau.
On the question,
We have to have a motion in a second to ask a question.
So moved.
Second.
Go ahead.
why do we only receive this list for this meeting to vote on this on 50 properties? And I think the total came up to 46,000 on all 50 properties.
Are we, this list was on the work session. This list was on the work
The
session.
list was?
Yes.
Okay, then I apologize. I don't remember seeing it.
We have a motion in a second. Can we have a roll call?
Ms. McDermott. Yes. Mr. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Mr. Schneek.
Yes.
Mr. Thornton.
Yes.
Mr. Urban.
Yes.
Mr. Lovett.
Yes.
Mr. Venus.
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch.
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo.
Yes.
Ms. Radel.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Motion passes. Motion to adopt resolution approving demolition of building 16, the Franklin dormitory of the Keystone Job Corps Center.
So moved. Second, Thornton.
We have a first and a second. Roll call, Ms. Lawrence?
Mr. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Mr. Schneek,
Yes.
Mr. Thornton,
Yes.
Mr. Urban.
Yes.
Mr. Lovett.
Yes.
Mr. Venus.
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch.
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo.
Yes.
Ms. McDermott. Yes. Ms. Radel.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Number 6, motion to approve agreement with PennDOT regarding the Water Street Bridge, authorizing the county manager to execute documents.
So moved.
Second, Thornton.
Roll call?
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Mr. Schneek.
Yes.
Mr. Thornton,
Yes.
Mr. Urban.
Yes.
Mr. Lovett.
Yes.
Mr. Venus.
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch.
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo.
Yes.
Ms. McDermott. Yes. Mr. McGinley.
Yes.
Ms. Radel.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Number 7, motion to adopt resolution declaring a vacancy on the Board of Elections and Registration.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Schneek.
Yes.
Mr. Thornton.
Yes.
Mr. Urban.
Yes.
Mr. Lovett.
Yes.
Mr. Venus.
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch.
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo.
Yes.
Ms. McDermott. Yes. Mr. McGinley.
Yes.
Mr. Perry.
Yes.
Ms. Radel.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Number 8, motion to adopt resolution initiating an inquiry into Luzerne County 911 P25 countywide next generation public safety radio system.
So moved, Miscavige.
Second, Urban.
On the question.
Go ahead, Mr. Lombardo.
All right, I have several questions on this, being that, well, I am the only person on county council that has any institutional knowledge and is an end user of this system. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you to the 911 Communications Center, Mr. Rosenkrantz and all of his team for everything that they've done. This is really the culmination of several years of really hard work, of research, of bidding and whatnot to get a great system that is going to improve the effectiveness of this of our communication system from the 911 center to first responders. It's going to make it more effective. It's going to make it more user-friendly. And above all else, it's going to make it safer and make the job of first responders safer. So, you know, they'll be able to more effectively do the job and most importantly, go home to their families every night. So Mr. Rosenkrantz, I don't know where you are, but if you're listening, if you're at this meeting, this should really be like pinnacle of your career here in Luzerne County. But I apologize if you know this has been disparaged in any way. But I did hand out a piece of paper to the rest of council that is from a document which I printed out from a FEMA document from March 15th, 1993, which some of you may know has a interesting relationship with myself and my family, where 2 firefighters were killed in the line of duty while fighting a blaze in North Main Street in Pittston City. Number 6 of that document, on page 14, it says incident management procedures should be practiced and utilized at all fires. And on the very last sentence, it says the lack of safety officer and the inability to communicate with interior crews were serious problems in this case. So in the fire service and in police and in EMS, a safety officer is there to communicate with their individual units to, you know, continue the operation and make sure that things are going well. And then they're there to continue and communicate back with the 911 center to tell them what units they need, what resources they need, and to speak about the progress of the incident. So I just want you to all keep that in mind as I continue to speak here. So I have a few questions just for the people that are supporting this before I decide to make a vote on it or not. Again, you know, keeping in mind that I really haven't been included in a lot of this conversation. I'm sort of befuddled as to why. But my first question is really procedural. Why wasn't this put on a work session agenda first?
It was discussed at a work session. I brought it up.
The resolution wasn't on the work session. It was just a discussion, but that was the reason I was given. So I, at the request of Councilmember Liscavige, I placed it on the voting session.
Okay. So again, on this document, on this resolution, it says that the county council has concerns about the project. So I would like to know exactly what the concerns are before I decide to vote on this. If anybody could give me some insight as to that, like specifically if there's 1 through 5 or a significant number.
Sure, I don't mind.
Yeah.
Since I presented it. My whole thing is I support 911 100%. This isn't about supporting 911. This is ensuring that the residents of Luzerne County received what they paid for. And because whether you want to talk grants, it still amounts to $27 million spent on a $20 million project. So there was basically $7 million overrun. And if the way I understand it, if the grants presented for $2 million, our original bill was $20 million, then we should only owe 18. You don't say, hooray, let's make it 22 now. That's not the thought process. I don't think of anybody sitting here. We're all here to save $1. So basically, I want to review all of this and make sure that we're getting everything that we paid for.
Okay. Did anybody talk with the 911 director about this in any extensive way?
I spoke to initially Fred Rosenkrantz.
Okay, and how did he explain that to you?
Well, he stood up here, if you don't remember when he gave his
I do,
speech.
yeah.
He said he welcomed it.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand that, but what was the explanation for this disparity in the budget of 20 million, 27 million?
Well, it's 35%. I don't know what, that's why I want to look at it. If I had
Okay.
the answers, I would tell you, but I don't have the answers, so I want to dissect it.
All right, and so I'm just wondering what the goal of this entire project is, because it's 98% complete. It's in testing right now, and most importantly, you know, I've spoken to the 911 director, I've spoken to people in the 911 center, and they tell me that just in the preliminary testing that this system is going to be miles and miles better than what we currently have. So, you know, I'm just trying to wrap my head around what the thought process is behind this. I'm just wondering what like the ultimate goal is at the end of the day here. Like if we find some sort of serious nefarious activity that went on, what do we just rip down every tower site and take every radio out of every
I had some
every
people.
police car?
So one thing that's of concern is it's only going to work within Luzerne County. If you cross over the line to a county that doesn't have the upgrade, now you're not able to communicate with them. So if we just have them use the new system, not the old system, that's a problem. And I'm sure a lot of departments go out of the county. Maybe not everyone, but they do. So that's a big concern. Other concerns are when this does switch on, is it going to be up and running? I would hope so. But these are different concerns that have come to me.
I just have a question to your concern saying that this system doesn't communicate with other systems after you leave the county. So are you saying after we just paid all of this and installed these new systems that you think we should?
If the other county doesn't have the upgraded system.
Right, but would we would essentially lose all this money though, if you're saying you want a totally new system?
No, because that would work within Luzerne County. It's a matter of when they go outside of the county to help other departments, you know, because say they cross over to Wyoming County, they don't have the upgraded system. Now they can't communicate with them. So they're going to have to keep their old radio in order to talk with that department.
That's not necessarily true.
That's not accurate at all.
Mr. Rosencrantz is on.
That's not accurate at all. We have analog gateways built in. This will communicate with all surrounding counties.
If I could just follow up on that, my current radio that I've been given by the city of Pittston is one of these P25 capable radios. It's actually a higher quality than the ones that the county is giving to every municipality, because the city bought it for us separately as part of our agreement or whatever. But my radio currently is in analog format, so it could just be switched from analog to digital essentially by hitting a button. So the idea that if you leave the county, you're not going to be able to communicate with the other counties that's not accurate at all.
Another concern that was brought up is the amount of, or the radios that a department purchased. They said they reached out, they asked what radio that they could buy, which radios. They were told which ones. They went out and bought a bunch of these radios. Now they're saying that it's not going to work, but you have to go to certain distributor, certain manufacturer. So they wasted all that money on that and probably never got it in writing, which is unfortunate, but that's another thing of concern. So this is what I'm hearing. I don't know, you know, we want to be able to get the answers, but that's going to be a lot of, you know, to any municipality that had that happen, that's a lot of extra money. You know, these radios are what, $2,000-3,000 a piece. That's a big concern.
Mr. Rosencrantz, sorry. Do you have any?
I would
any
negate
intel on
that. I would negate that rumor as well. And I'm assuming your source is from a vendor locally. I won't mention their name, but there's some issues here that I'm hearing and inaccurate information being shared. We were fully transparent with all the agencies. Prior to this going live, we gave every agency a count of their radios, and they were given lists of what radios outside of Motorola would be compatible with this system. So us not informing the agencies is inaccurate as well. And I directly refute that.
Thank you, Mr. Thornton.
My concern or comments. I agree 100% with Mr. Lombardo that we should have the state of the art communications for on-scene, activity. But I'm just thinking this motion is to initiate an inquiry. It's not nowhere in the motion to scrap anything or eliminate anything. My only concern is going from 20 million to 27 million. 7 million is a lot of money, 35% more than the initial 20 million. And I'm wondering, maybe the inquiry will reveal, okay, yes, that's all kosher and that's great and that's what it costs. Or maybe they'll say, well, maybe we shouldn't have done this or that. I don't know, but it's just an inquiry. It's not eliminating any equipment, is it? The inquiry?
I'm reading it that it's a committee to launch an inquiry into 911. So it's a committee that would.
And the committee is formed by the chair, as I read that today.
Madam Chairman, can I say one thing?
Sure.
I agree so heartily with Mr. Lombardo, and I've been on this, hearing this 2019, I believe, from Mr. Rosencrantz. He kept us informed continuously, sometimes monthly, sometimes every 6 months, exactly what was going on, step-by-step process. I can't recall every single one of them. I remember we talked about the radio. We talked about who's getting in a radio, how we're going to go about getting the radio. This guy is the straightest guy I know. He did a fantastic job with it. For us to waste our time to go to an inquiry, this is a big deal. It's not just little, this is a big deal. I will not be supporting this at all. Thank you.
Yeah, my question, for even Mr. Lescavage, if you want to address this, since you brought it up, I'm just wondering, like, if we could just speak with Mr. Rosencrantz and have him address the concerns, and we could get the concerns that, Mrs. McDermott has and whoever else, and just ask that way. If there's a reason you think a committee is best, I'm just wondering why.
Well, since there's a $7 million discrepancy.
Right, which I feel he explained to us.
There is no
Not good enough for
$7
me.
million discrepancy. I
Well,
want to know.
because you take a grant and pretend it was free money and just add on to the project.
Mr. Lescavage, if you could let
That's
Mr.
not
Rosencrantz
accurate.
just explain quickly.
It's called
That is
piecemeal.
not accurate at all, sir.
Okay.
You're making accusations that are unfair and not accurate. I'm sorry. I can't listen to this. And I welcome the inquiry because I didn't just imply that we're just going to get $7 million of free money somewhere. The bottom line is every contract, everything we've done with this project was approved by council and put in front of them. And as Mr. Perry stated, I've been open and honest and transparent through this whole process. There's no impropriety. There's no $7 million shortfall. I believe you're insinuating that there's a $7 million shortfall because we didn't pay for the 20-year support and maintenance out of the loan borrower. The bottom line is the contract is for 20 years with Motorola, and approximately $5 to $6 million of that is spread out over 20 years for support and maintenance and hardware system refreshes on this system. So that's why I'm just upset that I'm being accused of doing wrong when everything I've done has been above the board and fully transparent all along. And all anyone has to do is ask me. So if you want to do an inquiry, whatever you want to do, that's fine. That's in your purview, but there's nothing to find.
Thank you, Mr. Thornton.
There's no mention of any time frame on the inquiry.
No.
That's concerning. I mean, if we did have an inquiry, we don't want it to go 6 months or anything like that. So what would be a time frame on that? Or do we need to amend the motion?
You would have to amend the resolution. You have to make a motion to amend the resolution.
Additionally, just to speak on what Mr. Rosencrantz just said, I mean, even with the $3 million request from the ARP funds that they're asking for, these are not things that the 911 center said that they needed or required. They're things that can be added on to the system. So if you have a grant that allows you to add on another piece of safety equipment that will keep first responders from dying in a fire or being shot in the line of duty and not being able to have medical attention received to them, wouldn't it behoove you to apply for that? I mean, I think that's more of what's going on here. I don't see there being this $7 million shortfall. I mean, I listened to the same presentation that you all listened to.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call?
Ms. Radel?
Mr. Thorne?
Excuse me, Ms. Radel.
Oh, sorry.
Ms.
Sorry.
Radel,
Hold
I'm
on.
sorry. I
ahead.
have a couple of questions, if I may. Number one, I think this resolution was sent out to 8 members of council and not all the members. Am I correct in saying that statement?
That's correct.
And why was that done?
It was sent, I was one of the 8, and as soon as I received it, I forwarded it to all members.
Well, why wasn't whoever initiated this, why wasn't it sent to everyone?
Because it was a mistake on the email. I'm sorry, I made a mistake, sir.
Okay, that answers the question. Thank you. As far as what Mr. Lombardo referred to and several other members, when we went through this process, it was over several years, and Mr. Rosencrantz kept telling council, you're going to have to switch the system from analog to digital, and it's going to be expensive. And it was quite a discussion throughout those years. And finally, the decision was made that we needed to do that. And part of that decision was, and I think Mr. Thornton referred to this, is to have the best possible system so that our first responders would have the best possible opportunities. And that's what the council agreed to, and that's the way council voted. Now, there's been some additional things that have come up over the past almost 2 years now. And obviously, everybody's fully aware of the supply chain problems, the problems with trying to get things done because of all the different situations that have occurred between the pandemic and now that war over in Europe and everything that's gone on. I can understand when you have a bidding process that's 2 or 3, 4 years old, and now you are trying to complete the project and maybe add segments of the project that will enhance the project for the entire county, for all the first responders particularly. It behooves us to do that, to make sure that we have the best system possible for the people that need it the most, and also for the residents we serve. I think as far as a inquiry, I think I would hope we would invite Mr. Rosencrantz to come to a work session or whatever. And if somebody has a list of concerns or questions, if that would be forwarded to Mr. Rosencrantz, so he could prepare for those. And then, of course, anything that would come up during that. I don't think it's necessary for us to have a resolution, but it would be great to invite Mr. Rosencrantz and have that information available so he could have his presentation ready. That's my thoughts.
I just want to add on to that. I'm fine with speaking to Mr. Rosencrantz, having an executive session, something like that. I mean, I just don't think that an inquiry committee, because obviously if council members have concerns about something, that's fine. I'm happy to delve into that. That's great, in fact. But I just don't think that council's time is going to be served very well by having any type of inquiry committee, anything like that, because it just to me gives us this bigger breadth of investigation that I really don't think needs to be done. I personally, I mean, again, this has been a completely transparent process, in my opinion. I mean, I followed it as a first responder since the inception of it. But I mean, I just don't, really don't and again, like I said, this is something that up until today, I was not typically really asked anything about this, asked my opinion about it, maybe once in passing. I wasn't asked to serve on this committee until today. So, again, being the person that's the end user, who's the biggest beneficiary of this, I think that I, have a little bit of say in what goes on here.
Could I ask why you asked to be on the committee then, if you're not in favor of it?
So that I can make sure that the right questions are being asked. I mean,
Perfect. So then if you're on the committee.
But that leads me into another question. Who will be your subject matter expert on this committee? Besides myself, if I choose not to be on the committee, or if I wasn't, because originally I was told I was not one of the people that was considered for the committee. So who's the subject matter expert that you all would be relying on?
I'd like to add something. Even if you're not a committee member, you can still participate in the meetings as a council member.
That's correct, but I'd still like to know who the subject matter expert is as to this, because I don't know the technical aspects of the 911 system. I just know what the end user goes through, and I can give you some institutional knowledge about it. But I don't know everything.
That's what our hope is as the committee, to bring somebody on that knows the systems inside and out and can lead us to make sure that everything that we pay for, we receive. One of the biggest problems I have is right out of the gate with that consulting firm. We had towers that they went out and looked at, and then it was after the fact, oh, by the way, you need new towers. You mean to tell me these people do this every day? They should have picked up on that. No, wouldn't held the wait for those items, and they should have said, you know what, this is what it's going to be. But you know what this seems to me, only from dissecting bits and pieces, it seems like this thing was piecemealed right through. And there's a law against that. It's called piecemealing a bid. When you bid something, you bid this whole package, not this part, that part, that part. That's all I have to say on that.
Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
If things were also completely transparent, like back in the day, all of this stuff wouldn't have been redacted from the original contract. I mean, that was the original, I know my father was on council at the time, and he wanted to ask why the redactions. They wouldn't even tell you how many radios they were going to purchase at the time. I mean,
they probably didn't know.
Well, they had to know. Come on.
They probably didn't know the exact answer. I mean, there's a formula as to how many they would purchase. They had to talk to every single department, ask them how many vehicles they had, what type of vehicle they had. I mean, I know what the formula is. So, I mean.
But the fact is that it was redacted in the initial.
And some of that is proprietary information from what I understand.
That's the frequency stuff, yes.
Yeah.
But not how many radios. So
You were
X amount of radios times X means X amount of cost. I mean, anybody can do math. I mean, but the fact is I don't think it's a witch hunt. I think it's more of, if we're 98% done, I think it's more of a post-mortem. why did we spend $7 million more on something that was quoted at a lot less cost? Were there add-on things that maybe they should have addressed in the beginning and be completely transparent, and completely upfront with us? They knew they had the program over the air. Why didn't you price that in at the original, scope of the project versus, 4 years down the road, you're now trying to scope it out and then tack on an extra couple million. What would have happened if we didn't get the $7 million in grant money? It would have had to come out of the budget or come out of this county somehow. So, the $7 million in grant money is a gift horse. That's not guaranteed ever. So, I don't think it's really just because we say inquiry, we are allowed to go and ask the executive branch, well, how did you come to that original number? Why did you spend $7 million more, an extra 35% over budget? I mean, you borrowed the money to begin with. You asked the taxpayers to borrow the money to foot the bill for the radio system. Nobody denies that it was needed. Nobody says that, hey, we don't want to be at the cusp of cutting edge technology. We all support that. It's just why was it an overrun? Can you improve, after the fact? That maybe the next project that we get, that's a big ticket item, that we can at least have a better scope and be more in line with how much we're going to spend in the future.
Mr. Thorne?
Madam Chair, given the many different opinions here on the subject, and in light of some of the things that were said, such as Mr. McGinley and Mr. Lombardo, Mr. Lescavage, Mr. Urban, I think I'd like to just make a motion to table this motion until after we get a chance to meet in executive session with Mr. Rosencrantz.
And I would second that. And the only reason I'm seconding it, not just from me, anybody here in this room or his co-workers throughout the county know the work that Mr. Rosencrantz and his reputation as being top-notch person. I think we owe it to him to get answers from him first. And if we don't like the answers, then proceed.
Okay.
But I think out of respect for all his hard work, we owe that to him. Again, if we don't like his answers, then proceed with an inquiry.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table. There's no further discussion on the matter, but I do just want to quickly comment that I don't know if it would be able to be an executive session. I don't know if that's an executive session topic. It might need to be a work session, but either way, there's a motion and a second to table. Roll call on tabling this.
Mr. Thornton?
Yes.
Mr. Urban?
No.
Mr. Wilovich?
Yes.
Mr. Venus?
Yes.
Mr. Lescavage?
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo?
Yes.
Ms. McDermott?
Yes.
Mr. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Schnee?
Yes.
Ms. Radel?
Yes.
10 yes, 1 no.
Okay, number 8 is tabled. Number 9, we have a motion to adopt resolution appointing a county manager. We would have to open nominations.
So moved, Willovich.
Second, Venus.
All in favor of opening nominations?
Aye.
Abstentions, opposed, nominations are open.
I'd like to nominate Randy Robertson at a salary of $181,500.
Second, Willovich.
I'd like to recommend Mr. Johnson. I had him second on my ranking.
At what salary?
What was it, 170 he requested? Yeah.
A motion to close nominations.
We don't have a second for Mr. Johnson? Okay, Mr. Johnson fails for lack of a second. So we have a motion to close nominations.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions, opposed, nominations are closed. So the only person nominated was Mr. Robertson at a salary of $181,500. Before this comes to a vote, I just want to make a comment briefly, and I normally, like I said, don't comment as chair. But I do want to say that majority of council supports Mr. Robertson as manager. So in order to keep county business moving forward, stop the delay, and in an effort to cut down on the polarization of council in recent weeks, I am going to support Mr. Robertson, but I would like to say on the record that I do still have some reservations, and I don't agree with the disrespect that was given to Ms. Kokomo over the past weeks. Roll call, Ms. Lawrence.
Hold on, and I would like to also thank Ms. Kokomo for an outstanding job over that time period. I mean, she jumped right into that. She jumped into some messy situations there that had to be cleaned up. She cleaned those situations up. I mean,
I agree. Thank you, Mr. Schnee. Roll
and
call.
I just want to thank her for her.
There's an additional blank effective date that needs to be put there on the resolution.
Effective date on the resolution.
When did he say he was
So
available?
we said effective June 1st, 2022, or we could put June 1st, 2022, or as otherwise agreed upon.
Well, the resolution says adopted by Luzerne County Council at a meeting
No,
held on,
required.
oh, okay.
I believe it was June 1st. But if someone wants to make the motion to fill that in, Leanne, if you're okay with, you're making your nomination 181.5 for Robertson, effective June 1, or as otherwise agreed upon by the parties, is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, who made the second?
Just Thornton.
Are you okay with that?
Sure.
To second that?
Or wait, was that the motion or was it Thornton and John?
Huh?
Oh, that was the, okay, never mind.
Yep, that was it. So Leanne nominated Robertson, sorry, Ms. McDermott nominated Robertson, 181.5, effective June 1, 2022, or as otherwise agreed upon by the parties. Mr. Thornton is making that second. So roll call on adopting this resolution for Mr. Robertson.
Mr. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Wilovich,
Yes.
Mr. Venus,
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch.
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo,
Yes.
Ms. McDermott,
Yes.
Mr. McGinley.
I would like to again echo the fact that Ms. Kokomo has done an outstanding job. Obviously, you know by my vote at the last meeting, I supported Ms. Kokomo, and I still support her, but with her withdrawal of her application, she's been removed from the contention of possibly being the county manager. I do have some reservations in regards to Mr. Robertson, but in light of the fact that, you know, we're going to try to move forward, I'm going to abstain from the vote because I don't want to have a negative vote against Mr. Robertson, but I do have some reservations, so therefore I will abstain.
Mr. Perry,
No.
Mr. Schnee,
Abstain.
Mr. Thornton,
I would like to just briefly say, thank you, Attorney Kokomo, and I hope she sticks around in the employ of Luzerne County for many years to come, and I'll vote yes on the motion.
Ms. Radel,
Yes.
8 yes, 1 no, 2 abstentions.
8 yes, 1 no, 2
Excuse me,
abstentions.
change my vote to a yes. Move the county forward, I'll vote yes.
9 yes, 1 no, 1 abstention.
9 yes, 1 no, 1 abstention. And just so the public is aware, give me 1 second. The resolution states 181,500 for Robertson. It'll be effective June 1st, 2022, or at an otherwise agreed upon date. Also in the contract, Mr. Robertson will be given $4,000 towards healthcare. He's not taking the county's healthcare. $40 a month for cell phone reimbursement, $4,800 for costs of temporary housing and relocation costs, not to exceed $15,000, but he will have to give us three bids and accept the lowest of the 3. Public comment, Mr. Garris, you had your hand up,
No, yeah, this is not agenda.
non-agenda.
I would just like to try to congratulate Councilman Schnee on his appointment, and I hope he represents Southern Luzerne County and the rest of the county tremendously well down in Harrisburg, and we look forward to working with you in that capacity.
Thank you.
Mr. Newman?
This is not agenda.
Yep.
According to Sunday's newspaper, Times Leader, Apparently, we have a serious problem with children and youth. I would like to comment on that, and I would like to proffer some suggestions on how to deal with the problem long-term and short-term. Let me take long-term first. This graduation season for the local colleges, Luzerne County, Lackawanna County, Bloomsburg State University, East Stroudsburg State University, Keystone College in Laflin. A lot of good people graduating that will be looking for jobs. Many of them in the field in which you have employment and need for employment. I suggest strongly that you start recruiting these people. There should be representatives at every job fair in any locality close here. You just might get what you need to help your problem. That's long term. You should be recruiting heavily. So the placement officers, maybe you ought to listen to these folks. Maybe you ought to listen to this. This is good. These are good suggestions. Recruit heavily with the placement officers and at the job fairs. Now that's long term. Now, how do you bridge the gap from now until these folks are trained? Well, several people have retired from children and youth. Why not approach them and offer them a contract? Now, I understand there are some issues that would have to be resolved, but since the union is raising the point that you have an extreme problem, maybe they'll sit down and listen, and maybe they will make an ad hoc agreement to bring people on, train people who did the job at a contract rate of an hourly rate, a daily rate, a weekly rate, a monthly rate, whatever you can negotiate, whatever you can negotiate. And in times such as we're going through now with the economics,
Thank you, Mr.
maybe they would be interested in such an arrangement. I think you need to think about it seriously, and it could bridge the gap from now until you can bring your new hires on.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Mr. McCabe?
And Joe McCabe from Exeter. One of my questions was answered about Mr. Robinson, if his salary was going to be prolonged or starting in June 1st when he was appointed. But I'm glad you took the initiative to prolong the salary until later on, so that's one of the questions. My other question is a key thing. I call the election bureau. I get a mail-in ballot and they don't know when the ballots are going out. Does anybody in this table know when the ballots are going out? Mail-in ballots?
I don't know the exact date. We could get an answer for
Because
you.
we're running out of time, next month's the election already,
We'll get you that answer.
Okay, I hope you can look into and get them out on time.
Sure.
I want to say they go out between the 15th and the 20th. I don't know that. Don't quote me on that.
When
but
I call them, they don't know, they have no
I think it's
answers,
between the 15th and the 20th.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'll find
Thank
out
you.
and give you a call, Mr.
Thank
McCabe,
you.
okay? Mr. Griffin? You good?
And to that point, could the public email people on the election board or election?
Yeah, you could email the election board too.
And the Bureau of Elections?
Yes, you
So
can.
you could email them.
Mr. Brennan?
I'm going to work right now. Okay. Greg Brandon, Wright Township. Before I begin, if Mr. Randy Robertson is listening, on behalf of Fix Our Roads, Luzerne County, I want to congratulate you on your appointment, and I want to welcome you to Luzerne County. Good evening, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. I have tried for over a month to get answers in writing from our acting county manager and/or head of budget and finance. I have been unsuccessful despite numerous emails to council, Ms. Crocomo, Mr. Swets, and Madam Chair Radel. I want the answers on the record, this is a perfect time to ask the following and receive the answer this evening. What years qualify under the ARP rule? What year did Luzerne County record an $8.9 million revenue loss? If that was 1 year, do you still have to determine losses for the other years under the ARP rule? And I understand from an anonymous source that the county revenue loss can be used from the ARP funds for any government service, of which roads would certainly be a component of that category. We have a reported revenue loss of 8.9 million so far. When will council release that amount from the ARP funds so that we do not lose the 2022 construction season?
Can I respond to that?
Go ahead.
Mr. Brandon, we did receive an email from Mr. Sweat several days ago regarding this, and I believe he said that we will be using the individual calculation. I don't think he went into too much more detail about what years it was because you have to determine what years. But I do know that the initial 8.9 million was the first number that we received. So obviously, it will be probably significantly more than the $10 million. That would be the normal calculation. Now, what that is, I don't know, but I mean, I could tell you that me and a number of other council members have been talking about, getting some project on the next agenda, work session, whatever, just so that we can get some things going because I follow your page too, and I see some of those roads, and I don't travel on them every day. So I don't, some of the mountaintop area roads, I mean, they're very bad.
Yeah.
So I understand that. And I personally, and I know other council members would love to fix them as well. So we're working on it. And I know that might not be the answer that you want necessarily.
Do you have a timeline on when you think Mr. Sweats is going to have that figure done?
I don't know.
If that could be arranged, that'd be great for the details.
Also, I saw the email that you had sent. I was away, but Mr. Sweats did get back to me and sent an email, so I can go ahead and forward that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And I honestly, I think they're also going to they might be able, I don't know if they're prepared tonight, but we did discuss just giving updates on these projects, grants, roads at every work session so that you guys can be made aware just in public at a meeting.
That'd be fantastic.
We discussed that last week, so I don't know if we're prepared to do that this work session, but it is something that they're discussing.
Madam Chair, I also forwarded you responses to some queries as well.
Yes.
And we will be adding grants that we've applied for, either in the county manager's report. I wasn't able to get it into this report or budget finance report. So we'll definitely have, we made some applications for some grants. We'll have them in the budget and finance report because that'll be coming up sooner than the county manager's report, which will be next month.
And Mr. Brennan, I'll make sure after the meeting tonight, or even probably tomorrow.
Yeah, no
I'll
problem.
forward the responses to you.
Okay, thanks, Chairwoman. Okay.
Mr. Raybo?
First off, I'd like to congratulate Mr. Robertson for his appointment and wish Acting Manager Kokomo well in whatever future endeavors she decides to stay or find any other position. I wish her well. And I want to thank council for hearing and taking into consideration what would transpire with the land bank if the $500,000 was transferred. As Mr. Thornton said, I agree. Blight, we got to take care of it. We got to tackle it. I've been dealing with this issue for 10 years. And Mr. Lombardo says he has institutional knowledge for 911. I have a lot of institutional knowledge on blight. So, and I was also working with the state blight task force, and I offered input on the land bank law. So I kind of know what I'm talking about when it comes to the land bank law. In fact, I also said to the state legislature that I'm for land banks in principle because they are a useful tool. However, the concern I have is that they could be weaponized as a means of plucking properties. And in a form of backdoor eminent domain. And that is scary because that is a deprivation and an infringement on Fifth Amendment rights, which I hope all of us would be opposed to. So that being said, and I agree with what Mr. Thornton said about having a, like if there's an indemnification or a review process, so then that way, anybody who asks for ARPA money, it would be reviewed and scrutinized to the hilt, because as Councilman Thornton said, it is going to be audited by the U.S. Treasury Department, specifically the Inspector General of the Treasury Department. And I don't think you want, I know none of you want to have that kind of hassle on you, so I would urge caution. And also to close it out, Madam Chair, the council does have right of first refusal for any property in question for a land bank, as the previous chair just alluded to in terms of the council has oversight over the vendor of the tax claim bureau. So you guys or any taxing body that has a question on the property, I'm finishing, that you can use that right of first refusal to take out that property that's in question.
Thank you.
At an auction. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rabel. Any other members of the public? Mr. Chomp?
Madam Chair, council members. While observing council meetings, I have continuously heard Ms. Radel tell speakers that they cannot specifically address individual council members as they speak. I have sent Ms. Radel an email requesting documentation on this rule and never received a reply. I have also researched the council bylaws, the Roberts Rules of Order, and the Pennsylvania Sunshine Act law for clarification on this matter, and I could not find any specific language prohibiting the public's right to address or question individual members of council, whether that be directly to that person or through the chair. Personally, I feel that the public should have the right to question any individual council member, for this is one of the primary methods we must use to hold our elected officials accountable for their votes and actions. Council can easily amend their bylaws to accommodate this scenario, and it can be worded in such a way that it still has to go through the chair if one was worried about maintaining decorum at meetings. I think it would be a worthwhile step in preserving our First Amendment rights, the right to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Thank you.
Any other members of the public? Mr. Griffith, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate you recognizing that I put my hand up in the chat room. So I have a couple of items that I wanted to address council with tonight. My first comment is on Friday morning, about 8:10 in the morning, there was a power outage in the city of Wilkes-Barre due to a transformer that burned out. And I know Ms. Crocomo addressed this in their division reports, but it's a very dangerous situation that we have in county buildings when there's an emergency. Friday, I witnessed it firsthand, and Mr. Lombardo, as a firefighter, will recognize my issue, is that when the power goes out in Penn Place, there is absolutely no way to enter the building without an electronic badge. The doors are locked from the outside. You can't get in. Security does not have a key to the outside fire exit doors. I tried to get in those doors to go up to the second floor. You cannot get in those doors. They don't have a key. A building and grounds director was there. He has no key. Security has no key. When we finally did access the door and get inside, when you go to each individual floor, they're locked out from the outside as well. So you can't get into the actual floor without a key or without an electronic badge. It's a very serious fire problem. If a firefighter has to go up those fire steps to get into the second floor and there is no power, there's absolutely no way that those folks can get inside that building to rescue anyone. It's a real problem, and it needs to be addressed sooner rather than later. I don't know why fire doors are locked on the inside from the outside of the door. I know you have crash bars on the inside to get out, but you should be able to get in from the outside as well if you have to get in there to rescue somebody. We don't have that access in Penn Place. It's something that needs to be addressed rather quickly, and council needs to be aware of that situation. The other part of the equation is maybe with this ARP funding, we could possibly get emergency generators for county buildings, possibly Penn Place, as well as the courthouse and children and youth building. We should have at least an outside generator that would turn on in the event of power loss, that would at least keep basic power going. We had people stuck in elevators. We had issues where the doors didn't work because of the electronic badge. And if we could use the ARP money, because we don't have a lot of capital funding, to fix that issue, that would be something that maybe the consultant can look at. I think it's really important. And to wrap up, my concern is you're going to have the Wyoming Valley Airport issue on your agenda for the work session. I strongly urge this council and Mr. Lombardo, who's the chairman of the ABC committee, to get an advisory board on the Wyoming Valley Airport. I think it's important that we have eyes on that property. We own the property. FBO is doing a fine job, but we need to have an advisory board in place there before we spend millions and millions of dollars on a master plan without any advisory board. I would hope that we would address that as the ABC committee. I don't, and Ms. Rado, if you could correct me, was the vacancy on the election board voted on by chance on the voting session? I might have missed it.
Yeah,
It was voted on?
we just, yeah, we accepted the vacancy.
Okay, I'm sorry. I must have missed that. So thank you for clarifying that. And the only thing I will wrap up with on the Missouri discussion for council on the work session, I would certainly want to get to the bottom of why we were not told that there was a lease agreement and a couple other things that were missed by the outside counsel that we paid over $100,000 for. Thanks, Ms. Rado. I appreciate the time.
Thanks, Controller Griffith. Any other
Madam
members of
Chair,
the public?
I'm gonna say a
Mr.
few
Fair?
words about Bob. This is probably Mr. Steve's last meeting, the way things are unfolding. And, I just wanted to express some thoughts about him. I know Bob since high school, and Bob came from humble beginnings. And I've seen him progress through his life to where he is today. It's truly an amazing story. Bob was a laborer at the water company, a foreman at the water company, and also became the leader of the union leader of the water company. Bob then became a member of the school board in Hazleton for at least 2 terms, if I can remember correctly, and here for 2 terms. And the only reason he survived all this time and successful so much is because there's a lot of great qualities. One great quality is he always cared about people. You can go to Bob anytime you want, and he would do anything for you. If you didn't have the answer, find it out. He was truly, truly a great person. And I will miss him here. He'll support us tremendously next year on the state legislature. I'm going down to see him get sworn in 2 weeks from now, and I can't wait for the opportunity. Bob, we'll miss you.
Thank you. Mr. Urban?
Just congratulations, Bob, since we're on that topic, but getting back to Mr. Griffith's fire issue and door locks, I mean, I have some experience in door locks and I've had to go through the iteration of replacing them now where I work. And there are a couple different types. You want to learn something. They're fail safe and fail secure. Power gets cut, sometimes the lock's open, other ones will stay locked. Now, I'm surprised that there's no backup battery on that system, which to keep it alive. So I think, maybe the county engineering or operations department needs to look into that seriously. Whatever funding I think they need to get that up and running and maintained properly. I think we need to address that. It's not a hard project to undertake. I mean, you have to maintain the batteries that are just hooked up to the panels to keep them alive, because they don't really generate that much power to keep those pads working and the locks working. So it is a programming thing. And then maybe to look at all the locks internally, when power gets cut, the doors inside probably should stay open. The ones outside might be fail secure to keep people from coming in, but the ones internally should all open up at that point in time. And there are differences between mag locks and latches. So I'll be glad to assist if questions answered.
Yeah, that's definitely something I agree with. And that's a very unusual situation. So I'd be interested to know, what exactly happened there and why.
I agree. Manager Kokomo, can you assign that to the appropriate division head to just look into what went on there and what we need to make that a little bit safer?
Of course, and we've already started on that, and we will have a report, an update for council.
Great, thank you. Any other members of the public, council members? Hearing
Yes,
none, do we have a
Mary Ann
motion to
Velez.
adjourn? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Ms. Velez.
That's okay, Duryea Borough. I just have a couple of questions for council at large. First, I would like to congratulate Mr. Robertson and thank Ms. Corcomo for her service. But getting back to my questions, when you were discussing the $7 million discrepancy with the system for our first responders, and I absolutely agree that our first responders should have the best equipment possible. Their lives are at stake on every call. But my question is, were there ever proposals requested when this project first started for budgets, blueprints, plans, things along that line? And if they were, whose responsibility was it to follow those budgets to ensure that they were remaining in line with what the original proposal stated? So if we had a proposal for $20 million, over that course of time, somebody should have been reviewing to make sure that everything was falling in criteria with that $20 million. And if there was a discrepancy, it could have been questioned at that time. So my question is, who's responsible for ensuring that the budgets stay on track?
Thank you, Ms. Velez. The 911 project began before my time on council, but Mr. Rosenkrantz, there were proposals. Council did vote on a proposal, and I think Mr. McGinley and Mr. Shee might have been here at the time. They voted on the proposal, and Mr. Rosenkrantz provided updates at that time pretty regularly, if I remember correctly. And I was a member of the public at some of those meetings, but I was not on council. But that was all done, you know, the same way with the request for proposal that was voted on, and that was presented to council numerous times. Any other members of the public?
I just have one more question, if you don't mind.
Go ahead, Ms. Velez.
The ARP funding, could any of that funding be applied to help the CYS by funding and training and hiring properly trained staff? Could any of that money be utilized for CYS?
I'm not sure at this time, but just so you are aware, council is, you know, in discussions in order to help our CYS department.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other members of the public? Thank you, Ms. Velez. Any other members of the public? All right, hearing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Beth Hartman, sorry. I had my hand
Go ahead, Ms. Hartman.
up. Sorry.
It's
Elizabeth
okay.
Hartman. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just talking about CYS and what's going on there. When are we going to see the Troutman and Pepper review? Has that come out? Have the council had the meeting to look at that in executive session so far? Like, where are we with that? It was supposed to be a month. That was back in September. Like, we're 4 months into this year, so we're 6 months into investigations and stuff. So if we can have an update, that'd be awesome.
Council will be updated, I believe, next week, and then the update will be made public.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hartman. Okay, we had a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Wait, who was the second?
Second. Make it easy.
Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Okay, meeting adjourned. The work session, it's 7:33 now. It's 7:40. We'll start with the work session. Thank you. Thank you. I'll give you an extra couple minutes. I'll give you an extra couple minutes.
No, never. You should put it underneath.
Post office.
Broker that deal for me? They would have broken that deal or they claimed already?
It is, I know.
I don't know. I took, oh, I thought you were, your own sign.
Yeah.
You said they didn't want to give
election is actually more.
We ready? All right, guys, can you turn your mics back on?
Kevin.
I'm not sure who's here from IT. Are we good to go?
So, what's his name?
Peter's out there. Peter's out there somewhere.
Where
are we at 5 weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah, brother.
I will. Don't worry, I'm already.
Bob.
Are mics back on? Mics
My
are back
state
on?
income tax.
Huh?
Remember my state income?
Yeah. I owe $228 on mine somehow. Not happy about it. My state income tax. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, the mics are
And then
live.
they
Mics are live.
Mics are live. Not my-
They said that I got one of the stimulus checks.
I just want to wait till IT gets back so we can make sure we're live here and ready to go.
Before we start talking about our tax.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Oh, they can already hear you. Yeah. That's already on record.
I said what mine was. I don't
Yeah.
care. I didn't do anything wrong.
No.
No, we never do.
I didn't do anything wrong. Government doesn't do anything wrong.
And who audits the government?
There, here he comes. Are we good? Are we ready to go? Okay, all right, cool. All right, so it is 7:49. We will call the work session to order. We already did the Pledge of Allegiance and stood for a moment of silence. We have a roll call, Ms. Lawrence?
Mr. Venus,
Present.
Mr. LaScavitch,
Here.
Mr. Lombardo,
Here.
Ms. McDermott. Here. Mr. McGinley. Mr. Perry,
Here.
Mr. Sneak,
Present.
Mr. Thornton,
Present.
Mr. Urban.
Here.
Mr. Lovett.
Here.
Ms. Radel.
Here.
11.
10 present. For additions and deletions from the work session agenda, we're going to delete item number 1. Any other additions or deletions? Hearing none, do we have a motion to adopt the work session agenda?
So.
Second Venus.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, the work session is adopted. We'll start with number 2, receive and discuss division reports for March 2022.
Good evening, Madam Chair, County Council. The report is the monthly report that the manager's office sends to council. I just want to applaud the effort of all of the county employees. It's an extensive report, and every time I review it, I really am, the respect for the county employees grows exponentially. So if there are any questions, of course, please email me or call me. I'll be more than happy to answer those questions.
Thank you, Ms. Kokomo. Number 3, discussion regarding resolution authorizing the use of American Rescue Plan Act funds to enter into a contract with Booth Management Consulting LLC. Manager Kokomo or Mr. Sweats?
I'll defer to Brian Sweats.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In front of you is an agenda submittal for a third party. As was mentioned before by both the public and some council members, our office will be doing the fiscal reports for this grant. We'll do as much of the compliance as possible and some of the follow-up with the third parties. But this is a specialized field where there are firms that handle things like FEMA rescue or something like when we had our river issue a few years back. They're specialized firms, and administration, including the people on the committee, which was myself, Andy Riley, Michelle Sparich, and Mark Majikis, doesn't want us to be in a bad spot. So we're absolutely engaged in the project. We're working on getting as much knowledge as possible. We've gone on various calls. If there's any kind of meetings or ARP training, we're engaged. But as we said, we don't know what we don't know. And also, we don't want to be in a position to pay something back. So there was 16 proposals. We went through them, got down to a smaller number. trying to compare apples to apples was a little different because there was a wide range in prices. So we kind of gave everybody the same assumptions. And with the same assumptions, the actual interview and the price point, Booth was the committee's choice. So that's all I have.
Councilmembers have any questions?
No, I just want to add, I had a long discussion today with Mr. Swets about this and Attorney Crockmo. In essence, the 250,000 or so that the county would be paying Booth management consulting, it's somewhat of an insurance policy. That would be like an insurance premium you pay on the 112 million that we got from the government for ARP funds. So we're kind of passing off a lot of the liability to them. So they'll be doing, I'm sure, extensive work on who's receiving the money and are the right outfits receiving it. And down the road, should, when we do get audited, and we will get audited on every distribution of that money, Booth will be standing right there with us to validate everything.
Thank you.
I have a question. So does this mean that we have to take every proposal that we have to spend the ARP funds and send it off to them and they have to take a look at it essentially?
Mr. Swets?
No, it's a good question, Mr. Lombardo. The way that I see it is that the ones we have now, including any further ones, we would not do every single one. Before the money goes out the door, we would have a process. So not just our pre-grant application, but everything should be consistent for every person, whether they're getting $1,000 or $8 million. So we want them to say, this is an acceptable use. These are the same questions, whether it be 10 or 100 that every grant applicant goes through. So that's really the reason we're doing that, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you,
Madam Chair.
Mr. Horton?
Quick question, Mr. Swets. For instance, I think we awarded a lot of that, I forget if it was 8 million or so to the Flood Protection Authority. So when the Flood Protection Authority is spending some of that money on a specific project in the county, would Booth management be looking at that specific project and weighing in on it as it's being constructed? Or what if afterwards it was done where they say, oh, that wasn't eligible? Is that possible? Or is that entirely up to the county to determine?
That level is probably a coordination of both. I don't think that would be entirely on Booth. Definitely after the fact they would. So they're really on the front end, making sure it's eligible, working with us to spot test during the project. And then at the end, getting some things from, again, each applicant and sample testing of invoices. They're really going to run the project, not us, but it would not be every check. But to Mr. Lombardo's point, it would be the same project management. So up front, it's the same questions. Yes, you meet the criteria. Here you go. And also, to have some sort of tracking of the funds. Right now, we talked about, while a penny hasn't gone out the door, we're maybe in that $98 million range because some projects were approved by council. To get this on, the county website or their own website, talk about the projects that are out there once they're approved, and do some of that as well. So it's not just for the council, it's also for the public and for transparency and for our side, besides the insurance policy, that we meet the audit requirements, that we're not getting written up for you didn't do A, B, or C as a subrecipient. So it's really a multitude of projects under one contract. I just do want to clarify, and I know it's work session and not voting, that 254 is for 1 year. It's going to be more than 254 all in. And if anyone would like someone from Booth on the next call, we can try to coordinate that before you actually vote on it.
Well, no, period, not to the end of this year, right?
Yeah.
It's for a full year, right? Not till the end of the year?
Correct. It's full year terms. Yes.
Okay, and yeah, let's see if we could get them on a call, if that's okay.
I have a question. It's kind of somewhat unrelated to this, but just because, so I have it in my mind right now, either Ms. Crocomo or Mr. Swets, doesn't matter who. If you don't know the answer, that's okay as well. How many pre-application requests did we receive so far?
I couldn't tell you. I know we've gotten some questions, but I don't know how many requests we got.
We can get that. Michelle Sparrish has been keeping track of that. She has a spreadsheet, and I can I can update council on how many that we received. I know we've individually, we've received a lot of phone calls, but I can get you that number.
Okay, thank you. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
This is Leanne. I just have a question. What exactly are those applications for? Maybe I missed it and I apologize, but what are those applications for? Are
Well,
they from individuals, businesses?
They range. They range from individual business owners to nonprofits. You know,
So
to
this is to help compile a list of all where we can spend
Yes.
money. Is that the whole reason? Okay.
what we're going to
Okay.
do is basically create what in the realm of grants are these buckets, and we'll label the buckets of this is the amount of money that's been requested so far from nonprofits. This is the amount of money that's been requested so far from small businesses. This, you know, so that council has an overall picture of the total amount of funds that may be at issue. Included in that spreadsheet that we will provide to council would also include any of the governmental projects, the intergovernmental Luzerne County projects that are on the table. But really it is to give an overview of council of the total amounts that are at issue.
Thank you.
I just have one quick question. Ms. Procomo, can municipalities apply for these too or no?
There's no prohibition, but municipalities and school districts did receive monies separately. We also have that list. We have the list of what the municipalities received, and we have the list of what school districts received, and that will be in the final spreadsheet that will be attached to what is provided to council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Number 4, discussion regarding resolution designating an agent to execute all required forms and documents for the purpose of obtaining financial assistance under the Robert T. Stafford Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act.
It's exactly what the title says it is. We need someone who's designated to sign the documents, and we've felt that given the nature of the Emergency Assistance Act that our county engineer should be that person.
Thank you. Council members, questions or should we move on? Okay, moving on. 5, discussion regarding resolution authorizing a contract with PFM Group for the preparation of a 10-year financial plan.
I will defer to Mr. Swets again.
Thank you. Madam Chair, in front of you and council members, in front of you is a submission for PFM. I should have mentioned, if I didn't in the agenda submittal, that they have done this before for us. I will provide council. I should have provided in the packet, but I actually thought of it this afternoon. I'll provide you the last 5-year plan. It is on the website, but just so council doesn't have to search. And since we're on work session, so you have time before the vote. They've done 2 5-year plans for us. It has always been through the RFP process. They have always been the lowest bidder. This again is kind of a specialized field. We don't get a lot of bids. This isn't something where it's an office supply company. We're going to get 10 or 15 bids. There's times we get 3 bids. There's times we get 2 bids. We do not get a lot of bids on this service, but they've done it in the past. In the past, it was part general fund and part DCD. One of the benefits of being a county with a negative fund balance, while not having credit ratings or be able to borrow any money, is we were able to get some DCD funds right at the beginning of home rule to offset some of this cost. Now that we have our own credit rating and we're investment grade, that's no longer eligible for the county, and it's not in this year's budget. So in prior years, we would put something in the budget and hope to get a grant. We know we're not eligible for the grant. Nothing was put in, and the project was kind of held off with the pandemic. To kind of make up for that, and with the time frame of the prison and the debt expiring in 2030, the majority in 2029, just a few million rolls over to 2030. We thought it was prudent to do a 10-year plan. And as I said in the submittal, the intent is they have the 2020 audited numbers. The 2021 audit, if done on time, would be June 30th. So they'll have 2 actual base years to base their projections on of audited numbers. So that's all I have, unless there's any specific questions on that.
Thank you, Mr. Sweat. Council members, questions?
That comes out of ARP money, right? The 160, 168,000.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Sweats, if I may, or Madam Chair, if I may. Mr. Sweats, you said that we did this twice before 5-year plans. How did it work then? Everything, was it beneficial in the past, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, so I'll attach the most recent one for council, as I said, but I think the intent is that it gives you a roadmap of what you can do to move forward. Some are easy and some are a little more difficult. So one was, increase the tax collection percentage. That's great. And it sounds great. And everyone in the public and council loves to hear that. It's not that easy to do. Some were easier to say, if you can increase revenue by having something like a billboard, and the council didn't go this way. I know the previous manager brought it up, just different out of the box ways, and some we did and some we didn't. But those things, plus getting our audits in on time, plus better budgets, led to our investment grade rating that we have today. It's not one and done, but I did think it was beneficial. And, with the status of our current prison facility and the status of the current debt being near extinction, I really think it's a beneficial plan. There's nothing in the general fund. So if we don't go ARP funds, I know council didn't want to use reserve, and I'm fine with that. I respect that. There's nothing in the general fund. So if it's not ARP funds, we're probably not doing it.
Fair enough. Thank you, Mr. Sweats.
Thank you. Number 6, discussion regarding the Jalmus purchase packet.
Not sure if everybody did review it, but the property is just a piece of land. And you would need, in this particular area, you would need 2 acres to build on. It is zoned conservation. There's no water or sewer there. And they based the price off of an adjacent parcel, which was $500. Does anybody have any questions about it?
So, what, Mr. McDermott?
Yes,
Yeah, so you said they would need 2 acres to build on it?
correct.
Is that because of zoning laws?
Yeah,
there?
that's the zoning. I checked with them.
2 acres, that's a
Yeah.
lot to build a
But
shed.
again, it's zone conservation. So,
Oh,
even if someone wanted to,
and the lot is 50 by 500, it says, right? 25,000, so it's less than an acre.
yes.
Okay,
Yeah, 0.532 acres.
yeah, okay, thanks.
Number 7, discussion regarding Missouri property. So Ms. McDermott, did you want to spearhead that discussion as well?
Yes, so we should come up with a way to sell the property. Of course, we want to be able to sell it as soon as possible. So we could have a couple different discussions, one with listing it. And I'm not sure the Office of Law may be able to say, this isn't something that we would put a bid out. I'm not sure how we would pick a realtor to do that, but we could list the property. And the other thing would possibly be put it up for a bid with a minimum bid. So it's something to think about. Again, we want to expedite the sale. I know people have reached out that they are interested in the property.
Yeah, I've gotten calls.
So if we hear people that are interested, should we tell you or?
Well, that's what we have.
That's what I've been doing. Like,
we have to decide how to proceed. What do you think we should do?
So if we went with a realtor, I know you can't just handpick a realtor.
Right, I don't know how the county would do that. I don't know who
I
would
mean-
be able to answer that
That's why maybe a
question.
bid would make, accepting bids for it would make more sense, because I think choosing a realtor, which sounds great, I think that would prolong the process, because then we have to
Yeah.
figure out a way to pick a realtor.
Well, if we did a realtor, I would just suggest doing it like they do when they pull pills to see where your ballot spot is when you're running for office.
Also, though, the only thing about that is it would go into the MLS, the multiple listing service, so that, would be out there for everyone to see, not just anybody within here. If it was a bid, we'd have to advertise it, which we've done before. And I did not reach out to Elite on this, but I know that they did help us with the bid process just in the fall. So I'm sure, hoping that they would be willing to help us with the bid. We could do that. We just did that at their courthouse rotunda.
Right.
So
Madam
So
Chair,
we know how to do
just
that.
a quick question. I refer back to Leanne, on this kind of information, because you're our expert, what do you feel is the best way to go here?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't know what would be better. I know we talked about the bid, but again, you'd have to have a minimum bid. That may be the fastest way, but.
Good question. With that, you said a minute ago, MLS gets out to a lot more people though.
Yeah, if it's listed in the MLS, multiple listing service, that's a realtor, if they have it listed, it would be out there, for anyone to search through. Of course, it could always go into, if it goes into an advertisement, I'm not sure how much farther of a reach we could get by doing just an advertisement. But
I think there are
again,
local people
anybody-
already interested.
Anybody
Yeah.
from, yeah, true.
And go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't something.
No.
You raised your hand.
Go ahead.
What if we put it out for bid with realtors based on the lowest commission rate? Because my thought there is the last two houses in West Pittston that sold, the people from the West Coast, one was from Seattle, Washington, the other one was from Oregon. So while local people weren't stepping up to that price range, people from the West Coast purchased those similar houses
And
for
that was
all that money
recent? Was it recent?
within the last 3 months, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that's true. People are looking to relocate. You might get a higher price from people outside the area. Just a thought.
Well, I think we need to bring back as much as possible since we took a beat on it.
Yeah.
Now, if we did go with the bid, we'd have to come up with a price to start the minimum bid at. And at that point, I guess you would need to have it priced.
Is there any limitation to doing the realtor or the bidding? Can you only do one or the other, or is it, whatever we decide? Say if we put the bids up, we don't get a lot of bids, can we then go to a realtor and, list it on the MLS and everything like that?
I'm trying to move it quickly though.
I understand.
I think you're gonna get a lot of bids on that property.
So
I mean,
personally,
there's
just the
only
amount of phone
three-
calls I've gotten
Yeah.
regarding this house, just of like people seeing that the county owns it. I think there's definitely at least 3 interested people,
That's good.
at least 3 seriously interested people.
There's only 300 listings in all of Luzerne County. So as soon as a house goes up, people are bidding and they're bidding way over what the price is.
They are.
This is the perfect opportunity for us to put that house up.
And it's the price range, of course, you know what I mean? We're gonna, I think we should seek at least 500,000 out of the house based on what the ones surrounding that size are selling for. So in order to attract that, I think we better get the word out.
And one good thing, I was informed that we were able to grandfather in the flood insurance.
Nice.
And we would be able to pass that on to the new owner.
Great.
So that's a big selling point.
So what are our next steps? So if we decide that we wanna put it out, if we wanna do bids, we have to get it appraised, right? Would we vote on that? Would the real estate committee vote on that?
I don't know if it has to go through the real estate committee. I would rather do this faster than, if we put it through the real estate committee, then it's going to slow it down a little bit more. Maybe if it has to go on a voting session, that we could put it on the next voting session, but I don't know if we need to have it appraised first, or, do we just say that we're going to advertise it and then have an auction?
Yeah.
With a minimum bid?
With a minimum bid.
Okay.
And then
Sounds good.
while we're passing that, we could also in the process work on figuring out if it needs to
So I
get.
just have to reach out to the correct person in the county to be able to get the appraisal done on it.
We can't use the appraised value of last year that we had.
No, that appraisal was from a while
That was from
ago.
like 2001.
Yeah. That was really close.
We could have like someone in the county appraise it.
We do have an actual appraiser that works
Right.
in the tax assessment office. I don't know what I guess it's really up to us to make that decision, but if he could appraise it.
Right, if we have
come up
someone
with
on,
your
if we have
comments.
someone on staff to appraise it, so can you do the work, but just copy like council or and Sharon and the office of law, just so it's ready to go for the next agenda.
So we're thinking to set it up, appraise it, and set it up for a bid, an auction.
I think it's the best time.
What's an appraisal
Right now.
worth?
Appraisal costs.
Yeah.
If you were gonna get one, at this point, it's probably at least $400, $450.
But if the county did it,
I think in order to keep it separate, we should get an outside appraisal,
okay,
just so it doesn't, you know what I mean? It's not in-house. Yeah, I don't think I would go with somebody in-house. So $500 on 600,000 we already
Right.
paid is finished, so.
And then what appraiser do you use? Just like what realtor?
Do we have ones
Well, we
with
had,
the county?
there was a list of realtors and appraisers, a list somewhere in the county, maybe in purchasing, they did have that. And actually, we're still waiting to hear back on the review appraisal, but there was the one appraiser that we used for the review of the D'Angelo property. But that was because he did reviews for the county before.
Does anybody know if they vacated the property, by the way, before we go through all this?
I believe they did.
Did they? Okay.
Oh, sell it anyway.
It was there was a closing date, yes.
The Department of Law.
Okay, and then just communicate with Leanne and just copy us, but Leanne could be the point of contact for this, if that's okay with everybody.
And one other, this is probably a legal issue. If it, putting it up for bid, I would imagine we'd have some kind of covenant in there that county council can't bid on it, or people at the county can't, or could they? Is that all perfectly legal?
Could you look into that?
Okay.
Okay, we'll have to do the research. Yeah.
I don't think it looked good. I don't know if it's legal.
Right.
or
I think
not.
it's a good look, but I mean, if one
Well,
of
I
us is
got
gonna
the
be the
lowest.
highest.
I know I
bidder,
won't be doing it because I don't have that kind of money.
Yeah, I'm good.
And I do also have to reach out to.
I'll go $50.
You know, to see if they, to reach out to Elite just to make sure that they.
I'm not in the market for a house, just for the record.
Okay, all right, good. All right, number 8, discussion regarding approval of county manager search committee expenses and interview expenses. All right, council, this is all, and if Mr. Sweats wants to weigh in, he can, but you have a packet of all the expenses.
It's all right.
Yeah, it's all in front of you. And then the only other thing is that our interviews, I believe, I mean, I discussed this with Mr. Sweats, and if I'm incorrect, you can set the record straight. To give them back their expenses, even for the county council interviews, I believe we're gonna use the budget line that the same budget line that the county manager search committee used. This way, if, you know, council in the future, or future council is looking, they could easily see that all the funds to hire a manager were taken out of one budget line.
Okay.
If that's okay with everybody, that's how we'll move forward. All right, cool. Public comment, or council members, you guys good on that? If we can move forward to public comment?
Actually, before public comment, I just wanted, this was old business and I meant to ask before, but we did vote, I think it was back in July, we voted to approve an assistant for the clerk of council. So I just wanted to, I know we had a lot of stuff on our plate, especially with trying to choose a manager, and that's something that we could move forward with. I don't even know if we advertised.
So we did, and I'll work with HR and even the Office of Law, because right when right around the time or soon after I was put in a share, I was sent like redacted resumes like very quickly. They're all redacted. It was kind of just passed over to me. So I don't know, so much time has passed. Do we have to re-advertise? We can look at, I think we might have to. So I'll work with.
I know, again, I know there's a lot on the
I
plate.
think we'll have to re-advertise, but it's something that we should definitely keep on our radar, and not let any more time pass.
Well, since it was discussed old business, could you maybe put it on the next agenda voting item, the next meeting? To
To
approve
re-advertise?
advertising for the position?
Yeah. Attorney Skeen, would we even need to vote, since we already voted to advertise
Oh,
once?
well,
We need to
then
vote
just
to
go do it.
re-advertise?
No.
All right, we might just, all right, I'll work with HR, and
Okay.
I'll make sure the Office of Law is in the loop on it, and we could just not drop the ball on that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anything else? Okay, public comment. Mr. Riddle?
Members of council, I have one question, one comment. I'll start with my comment first. Along the lines of what Councilwoman McDermott said about the real estate, you know, as far as who can bid on properties, as far as, you know, council members. I've had this issue, and I'm glad she brought it up during the discussion on the property, because ever since the discussion on the tax sale properties and repository properties, I've always asked previous councils, and now I'm going to ask this council to expound upon the process and procedures when it comes to tax sale properties and repository properties when it comes to elected officials purchasing at tax sale properties and auctions. Now, I know of one elected official in the Hazleton area that likes to bid on tax sale properties. Now, I don't know if that is that is allowed because of the fact that last time I checked, I thought state ethics doesn't allow for purchasing properties if it's above a de minimis threshold. So my suggestion, if council's going to look into that with the Office of Law, of course, might I suggest that you get an advisory opinion from the State Ethics Commission? An advisory opinion would be a nice thing to have and would coincide with a legal opinion for the Office of Law, because you, as council, are a taxing body under the law. So is a school district. So is a municipality. So I don't know if that would be, kosher in terms of taxing elected official of a taxing body to bid on a tax sale property or repository property, but I could be wrong. So that's my comment. My question is, with respect to child issues with not only children and youth. Now, I know that there's been some reports I've been seeing in the paper about misconduct by teachers and also people in, different variations and employees of government institutions and also other things of that nature. So when there's a victim, especially when it's a child, who does the child go to? If it's does county health services help the child? I mean, I know there's children and youth, but also is there any other avenues for the parents to go to for, if there's a problem? Because I know the district attorney is an independent body that investigates any complaints on that nature. I understand that. But I'm talking about if the child is suffering, like mental trauma, or physical trauma, is there a way for the county services to help in that situation? That's my question. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Mr. Raybould. Mr. Chomp?
Hello, Dave Chomp, West Pittston. I thought I saw it in the charter or on the website, but is there a specific committee that I can correspond with if I have a suggestion regarding amending the charter? Is there a legislative committee?
There is a legislative committee, but you could send the email to our LCCM email and all council members will receive it.
Okay. And then that would be forwarded to the committee?
The legislative committee is comprised of members of council.
Several, but not all of us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chomp. Mr. Newman?
Thank you. I've congratulated Bob personally. I'll congratulate you for the group. You've been a great addition to the council, and I'm sure council's going to miss you. Mr. Robertson, congratulations. Don't know if you're online or not. We welcome you. I listened to his interview. One of the points he made about problems in Luzerne County was children and youth. Okay. I made some suggestions. I proffered a suggestion and you can't wait on your recruiting because graduation is just a few weeks away and there'll be a lot of traffic towards these graduates. They're good people and they're educated in the field that you need. So please, if the recruiting hasn't started, get it started, right? And then as far as the contract situation, there's some talent out there that may be looking for some work in the field that they know a whole lot about. So please, somebody follow up on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Any other members of the public? I don't think there's anybody else here, but online. Hearing none, do we have a motion
Could
to
I
adjourn? Go ahead.
Speak a minute. First of all, during my 6 years here, I'd just like to thank the voters for the honor of putting their trust in me. I mean, there's not a greater honor. I mean, every one of us could share that than people going to the polls and voting for you. I mean, that's a great honor. And walking into this building every time is even a greater honor. Like, this is the people's building. And it's a tremendous building, and people should come here. And again, the managers that were here, I think we've done a lot of good stuff here under David Pedri and Ramilda Crocomo. I'd like to thank them for giving 100% every day, and it was a pleasure working with them to get stuff done. I served under two great chairmen, Ms. Hauk, brilliant with numbers, had her heart here all the time. Mr. McGinley, who built a lifetime long relationship with, friendship. I can't, he's well respected in the Wyoming Valley County by former students, by everybody. And he's one of the greatest men I've ever come across. Next to me, my old baseball coach. And as Mr. Perry said, I came from humble things, but I played sports, my mom and dad. I was blessed with the best mom and dad I could ever ask for. They worked very hard. They were blue collar people, but they never missed one of my games or practices. And Mr. Perry was my baseball coach. And as a 15-year-old kid, I didn't have a car till I graduated. I got my first car, and Mr. Perry was always there to give me a ride home, and he's been there ever since. So he's been like a second father to me. And other people that I've come across in this position is Matt Vogue. You can't meet a nicer young man that did more for this area with opioids, feeding people in need, raising money for cancer. Just a great individual. Sheila Sedman, another outstanding person. Jane Wakes, one of the nicest people I've ever come across. Stephen Urban Sr., just a great man, and I miss him. Gene Kelleher, just to name a few. And people here tonight, like I'm just honored to be sharing the room with you. And Mr. Lombardo, I heard on the radio the other day, he's outstanding. People ask, he's here to serve. He has no other thing. He just wants to serve and help people. He's going to be there a long time if he gets elected. I just like to thank people that I'm blessed through my life, people like you that in my life. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schnee. I don't think all the members of the public realize, but it's been a pleasure serving with you, and we spend so much time together that, you know, we all become friends outside of this, even though sometimes things might not look that way. But it's been great having you, and I wish you so much success in your new role, and I know you'll make your new constituents proud, that's for sure. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, meeting adjourned.
Sharon's gonna record that.